I think you've said everything. You've said everything. This idea of strategic thinking. Now, in many universities in Europe, especially in Germany, they are having institutes of future studies. And in Africa, there's only one in South Africa, yes. And the director was Dr. Saul. And in this Institute of Future Studies, they call it futurology, future studies. They try to construct possible, probable, and desirable futures. And some countries in Europe have constructed possible, probable, and desirable futures for the next 1,000 years. We are not even looking at the next 4 years. Sometimes we are even looking back to solve problems we should have solved 30 years ago. So future studies, for example, is quite important, so that we can construct, we can look at society as it is, and looking at the way it is going, understand its logic and dynamic to see where it will lead to and why. And then what interventions do we have to put in place if this is the desired future we want for ourselves. And future studies is developing fast in North America and Asia. Africa, we are sitting down there doing nothing. That's why this program is so important. Because I see this as part and parcel of future studies. And as I was discussing with my friend this morning or so, I can easily see that as part of the growth process, maybe 5 years from now, it moves from being a program into a center for the study of regionalism, or probably in the end, an institute for the study of regional integration. It should be possible for you to develop it into that with PhDs coming on board and all these. But you are right, as you said, strategic thinking. We are not in Ghana now. We have a shortfall of about 1 million houses. Many people are sleeping on the streets. So we have deficit. How then do we look into the next 100 years, the next 200 years? Germany has constructed possible futures and the desirable futures for the next 1,000 years. We are not doing that. So, as I said, our movement is characterized by short-termism. We are so much short-termist. We don't look, and we don't seem to be moving with maps to where we should be going. And these are all difficult. I think the students, yes, will have to first understand why things are the way they are. But if you don't even understand how the problems emerged, I doubt if you can solve them. And then, of course, you look into the future, you plan, how do you plan strategically? Something that Africans, we are not doing. And at the University of Ghana, we are trying at African Studies to have a future studies center where we would be constructing some of these things. So, yeah, there's one in South Africa, yes. Yeah, I was there with Saul. They did a program with Codestria in Dakar, and Ibrahim Saul invited us. I was there, and we tried to look at what is going to happen. Agenda 2050, Agenda 2030. No African country is able to meet the Millennium Goals by 2015. It has come and gone, and nobody is meeting them. So how do we do this? And I think it will take a lot of thinking and planning, And one of the problems is that most of the programs in the universities are delayed from the wider society. So if you come to the University of Ghana, so how do we break the wall between the academia and society? The new humanistic approach to education. All these things are, but I agree with you 100%. The state, is quite central to politics and to development. And the state that we inherited at independence in many parts of Africa is the kind of state that lacks a number of things: autonomy, real independence. So I think that we cannot understand development and politics without constantly referring to the character of the state, the nature of the social forces in which the state is embedded, and the kind of politics it engenders. So the state then becomes very critical. Now, it is when the state becomes an independent, autonomous public force that stands above society to express the corporate identity of political society that we can make a headway. For now, the state itself is engrossed, in conflict and so on. So something has to be done about it. Now, for a long time, many, including Kodesra, Kodake, all these, Olukoshi, they've looked at the nature of the African state and how that is responsible for the continuing underdevelopment. How then do we change the character of the state? What is to be done? One way is to ensure devolution of power, real decentralized power within the state. Because in many parts of Africa, power is so centralized in the capitals to the extent that the decentralized bodies really don't have any power. So what kind of decentralized administration do we want, and how do we achieve it? In Ghana, in the last 20 years, we've been trying the People's Assemblies, which is something that Lawrence copied from Libya. And now people are saying that, look, we should change it again, because the state is constituted as a dictator. All power belongs to the state. The presidency has the power of veto and certification. They can do anything at all. So one of the problems of Africa today, in terms of democratizing the state, is to demonopolize state power to subnational jurisdictions. And that is quite difficult to do, because those in control of the state don't want to give power. So that is one thing. But I do agree with you that the kinds of state that we have in Africa constitute a dysfunctionality. And the dysfunctionalities are so depressing that they don't allow development to take off. The fact that Africa is not developing, it is not because we don't have development plans. And I will not even say that development has failed in Africa. Rather, it has not been on the agenda to begin with. It has not been on the agenda, And so all these, to understand them and to be able to move forward, I think we should recognize the centrality of the state. And I do agree with you. Well, I think the role that Senegal played was quite important, because many people I spoke to were against the involvement of France and Europe and North America, and they wanted a real African solution to an African problem, and I think that is okay. The point is that in the Gambia, the man had power for a long time. Now, once he lost power, he wasn't sure of what was going to happen to him. And ECOWAS is not very strong. Nigeria is a bit strong, it can contribute. Ghana could not contribute more than 200 troops, and Ghana hasn't got the money. Togo and all these countries are very weak. So I think it was important that Senegal, you see, the point is that the first responsibility of every government is the responsibility to protect your citizens. That's the first responsibility. Now, if for some reason you cannot protect your citizens, then the international community might come in to help you. So if people are leaving the Gambia and they are going to Senegal, it means that they cannot avail themselves of state protection in that country. Now, if you don't allow the international community to help you to protect your people, and you cannot do it yourself, then the final thing is international intervention comes in. It raises questions of sovereignty and so on. But international sovereignty, international intervention would come when the responsibility to protect is being denied. And you are also not allowing the international community to help. Then it becomes justified on legal and moral grounds for the international community to come in. And so I supported the military option in the event of the man not willingly stepping aside and allowing, because in the end, you contested the elections with other people. The body that is mandated by the Constitution to announce the results, that the Electoral Commission, announced the results. You, as a candidate, has problems with it. You can go to court. But going to court shouldn't terminate the democratic processes. We had it in Ghana in 2012, if you recall, when for about 1 year, Akufo-Addo was at the Supreme Court challenging Mahama. Meanwhile, Mahama was sworn in and was governing. And so I think Senegal did not act unilaterally. Senegal was consulting. The Nigerians were ready to supply them with reconnaissance from air. Ghana was ready to provide some troops. Liberia gave it its blessing. And in the last minute, they went to the UN, the Security Council, also gave them the chance. So I think there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong. Senegal had the blessing of the ECOWAS, of the African Union, and of the international community, I mean the UN, to do that. So there was nothing legally wrong.
Ladies and